On this episode of the Sacred Playgrounds podcast, we're talking about recruiting and preparing staff. We're in the heart of this season, and we're going to talk about how to get them and get them ready. Welcome to the Sacred Playgrounds podcast, where we turn numbers into stories and data into insights. We dive deep into theology and research, paired with practical wisdom and action steps to help camping ministries thrive. I'm your host and producer, Jared Rendell, a camp enthusiast and part of the Sacred Playgrounds team. This podcast features Dr. Jake Sorensen, a scholar, author, practitioner, and the founder of Sacred Playgrounds. Be sure to subscribe, submit a question to us to be featured on the podcast, and click that support button to help make these episodes happen. Find us on Facebook and Instagram at Sacred Playgrounds or at sacredplaygrounds.com. Wonder with us what God might have in store at your Sacred Playground. Hey, welcome to the playground, everyone. Jared here, Jake here, checking in, taking attendance. Hey, buddy.
Hey, how you doing, my friend?
I'm good.
Happy spring.
I am well. Happy spring. My son looked at me. My wife was out of town this week, and whatever day it was, Monday or something, it had hit. You know, we're up in the Midwest here, and we had gotten some decent snow, and
it was the first time this winter.
I know, right? And it was all nice, and my son turns and looks at me and says, "The backyard's brown again." Perfect. There we are. Well,
yeah, been a little bit of whiplash, but here we are. It's what do they call it? Meteorological spring, I think. We're not quite to astronomical spring, but that's coming right around the corner. So,
right.
But meteorological spring, March 1st. So here we are. Happy spring, everybody. And
spring.
As all the camp directors and program directors start breathing in brown paper bags as they say, "Oh, summer's coming. There's only one season left.
It's coming." You know, we've done this, you know, most of them have done this long enough to know how fast this chunk feels like it goes.
For sure.
When there's so much that you need to do, and just that. So
we are with
you.
Right,
well,
we're with you.
Exactly. And so we're gonna talk today. The plan is we're gonna talk today about some of the most important people in your ministry, which of course you are part of. And you know, we've said more than once, summer staff are the heart of, you know, most of these ministries, whether it's, you know, whether you've got youth focused camp or whether you're doing incredible retreats and family camps or even conference kinds of things, your staff are what make it happen. Right. Mm-hmm. And so it is worth joining them on their journey. It is worth knowing what they need to thrive, which we've talked about before. And what we're going to hit maybe a little more today is our foundation, what they care about. What are the things that motivate them? What are the things that they want out of the experience on the front end that makes them say yes, and then how that sets their expectations, right? Because that really sets their expectations for what the summer is going to be like. So we're gonna lay that foundation with some things from a couple of studies that were aligned and were connected, all focused on staff. So Jake will share, you know, what those were here in a second as we dive in, and then we're gonna use that to kind of join these staff members through their journey from right now, where maybe they've said yes, maybe they are working toward, you know, figuring out, yes, am I actually going to do this? And then once they've said yes, once you've got that agreement signed, how are we preparing them for camp? That's this next step in the journey until arrival, and then staff training, and how those three important things lay foundation then through the rest of the summer. So that's the plan. That's what we're going to walk through today. So this all comes from, well, we're gonna use our stat of the week to lay that foundation. This is a challenge that we're still facing, and we've watched this challenge go, but we're going to use that as our stat of the week this week.
Stat of the week. Stat of the week. Stat of the week.
Right, friends, the stat of the week this week is 54%. Now, I want to emphasize that this is still in process, all right? We're still gathering some data, but we're just about to close the Outdoor Ministry Connection Director Survey. And so 54%, more than half of camp directors identified staffing as being understaffed in 2024. Half of camps, more than half of our camps were understaffed last summer. Now, most of them said that they were short a few people, like they could have used some more. It wasn't critically understaffed, but several of them were. About just about 10% were critically understaffed last summer, and then another big chunk said that they could use some more. So this is really why we're talking about staffing today, because it still is a big challenge. It's been identified as one of the biggest challenges, biggest threats to our ministries, is trying to find these emerging adult summer camp staff. And so that's a big challenge that we're continually facing. I want to point out that it is lower than it was in 2022 when we did the same survey with camp directors, and it was 81% were understaffed. And so we're doing better, and we all feel that, right? Like we feel like, oh, it's not as bad as it was, but man, I could have still used some more. And so when it's over half, this is still one of those big challenges, and that's why we want to focus on it today.
Thanks, Jake. As always, we'll drop a graphic for you so you can hit share. You're going to use that in your own connections, your communications, your conversations with board members or staff or things like that. So we name and claim this challenge, right? We know that's a thing still, Jake, that we could have used a few more. And I expect there are a lot of leaders who right now are nodding like, yep, that's what it felt like. Yeah. I really could have used a few more.
And when you think about the staffing crisis and the staffing challenge, there's several things and factors that go into it. And so that's what I really want to focus on today as we talk about not just the recruitment, but how are we retaining those people that said yes and helping them get to staff training, because there's been a drop off that people have been recognizing after they say yes in March or February and say, yes, I'm coming to camp this summer, and they don't show up on the first day of staff training. And that's becoming more and more common. And so how can we close that gap? And then the other thing to really think about is retention, right? We always talk about retention in the fall and making sure that we're doing that follow-up with our potential returning staff. The best way, and we've seen this in the survey data, the best way towards getting fully staffed is having a healthy retention rate. So getting those people who were really great for you that you've already trained, getting those folks back. And so getting at least a third, but up to a half of those folks back is really, really important. And that means helping them have a good experience, but reminding them of that great experience that they had, and then engaging them in the recruitment process as well. And so making sure that you're having good retention, making sure that you're really telling your story well right now as you're trying to recruit new staff, and that you are really working to maintain those staff up until staff training starts. And then I will add a fourth factor here. And that one is keeping them for the entire summer. Because it's a challenge sometimes with staff that aren't as committed or are really having a tough time heading out midsummer when you didn't expect them to. And that becomes a challenge as well. So getting them to not only commit, but then to stay through the whole summer. And so I really want to talk through some of those things today. And there's some strategies I think that we from the research that we can really hone in on to help make that happen.
Yeah, as part of those different stages. So the idea is we're kind of walk with you and those staff members from here. We're gonna share the three kind of foundational things that they're looking for that the research says, and then we're going to apply those to each of these steps in this journey from right now till their yes, from their yes through, in this pre-camp prep phase, which, like Jake said, is often, oh, we got them. Okay, let's just get to training now. And we have so many things to do that we forget about that. But pre-camp prep, staff training, and then good experience and retention through the summer. So we're going to join their journey just like you are. That's the plan. So let's lay that foundation here, Jake. To start to dive in, can you share kind of these three things that we have heard in these studies? Let them know what studies we're talking about, and then these three things that they are really looking for in their experience.
Yeah, so these are the impressions from the summer camp staff themselves, and so these come from surveys pre-camp about the motivation for why they're there, but then also some of the things from during camp and those experiences about what kept them there. And these fit into these themes. And so it's not just like one survey item. Sometimes it's multiple survey items. And we say, okay, these are the main reasons, the main motivators for them to say yes and to stick with you through the summer. And so it comes from primarily the Camp and Church Leadership Project. And this was a study that we started. So it was actually based off of work that we did way back with Camp to Congregation. We started with some of the staff study during that. And then we did this main staff study, and it focused on Lutheran camps. And then it welcomed in some United Methodist camps in 2022 for a second round of the Camp and Church Leadership Project. And then this past summer, the Camp and Church Leadership Project extended even farther to include our Episcopal camps and conference centers. And so they participated in a staff survey this past summer. So we've got multiple years of data from multiple denominations. And I want to add that because of the Camp and Church Leadership Project and because of some of the individual camps that we've worked with, we also have some data from evangelical summer camps as well. And so these all confirm some of these findings. Okay, so this isn't just one or two camps. We're talking about scores of camps, and actually many more than 100 camps have participated in this project. And so these three main things, I want to say that I don't think there's a number one, a number two, and number three here. I think all three of these are essential. And for some staff, one of them is the top one, and the others are 2 and 3, and some staff the others. But if you ask staff their top motivators, and you say, what are your top 3 motivators? At least 2 of these will be in their top 3. Okay? So those 3 are supportive relationships. They are looking to build relationships. We know this about emerging adults. They need peer-to-peer relationships. They're looking for deeper relationships with people their own age. This is developmentally appropriate. And this is why college is such a big deal, and they're making friends and figuring out relationships in college and things like that. And they're looking for those things at camp or in their experiences during the summer, which is one of the things that makes camp so compelling, is that camp functions on relationships and on building these deep relationships. So they're looking for supportive relationships. They're looking for new experiences. And this is one of those things that's very cultural for us. It's a novelty seeking that is part of the developmental task of emerging adults. So we know that from the research of Jeffrey Arnett and some other folks that look at emerging adults. They're looking for new experiences, novel experiences. What do I want to be when I grow up? What am I going to try to do? I'm going to try. It's a time of experimentation and trying new things. And so they're looking for new experiences, and that is something that camp can absolutely provide them. So supportive relationships, new experiences, and then the third thing is purpose and meaning. They're trying to figure out who they are and what they want to be. They want to make a difference in the world. Those of us who work with emerging adults and have for years love this about this age group. They are so fun to work with because there's this sense of altruism. There's a little bit of naivety in there, but it's like, I want to change the world. I want to do something good. I want to have an impact on this world. And it's one of those things that's why the young people and college students and emerging adults oftentimes fuel these larger public demonstrations and protest movements, the civil rights movement, and the movements that we see for peace in Gaza. And now this spring, we're going to see some young people gathering on college campuses, I guarantee you. And so there's this real sense of hope and optimism, but also like this sense that the world needs me. It needs to be changed, like that there's something broken in the world, and that, doggone it, I'm going to make sure I do something about it. So they're looking for purpose and meaning. And so these are the 3 things that they're looking for in their summer experience, in their life experience. And it's those things that really compel them to work at camp. Why did they say yes? This is what we ask on that beginning of camp survey. What motivated you to come to camp? And it focuses on these 3 things. I want to meet new people, or I want to connect with the people that I met last summer or in previous summers on staff if I'm a returning staff person. I want to have new experiences. I want to have a good time. I want to try something adventurous and something new. I want to learn something new, build new skills, build my resume, right? All those different things that we talked about with our Camp Builds campaign. And then I want to do something that's meaningful. I want to have an impact on the world. I want to have an impact on these young people's lives. And this is something that camp does as well. So these are the 3 things that are really the strong motivators.
Yeah, that's helpful. So it strikes me that these motivators sound an awful lot like 3 words that we've used over and over and over again
What are those
in
words, Jared?
response, right? If you've listened to, if you listened to this podcast before, you're probably doing them in your head right now. Those sound a lot. Those sound highly aligned. And I think this actually really matters with these three words that we have said. Camp staff need these three things to thrive. Talked over and over again, right? And you can say it with me, right? They need support, they need agency, they need community. Right? We've said that, we've said that over and over again. We've shared the findings that have been, again, confirmed over and over again. When those three things are in place, the outcomes of the camp staff experience, which are rooted in these same studies that, that Jake was talking about, when these three things are in place, camp staff thrive. Their outcomes, all these different outcomes that we measure, are higher. They're more positive. They're et cetera. When they have support, agency, community, right? We've got, I'll try to loop in the community of common purpose infographic into the show notes,
please,
so you can see these are the things that matter. When these are in place, camp staff thrive. So I'm struck, Jake, maybe you say a little bit about this, the clear alignment with
absolutely
the things that motivate them, the things that make them say yes, and the things that we need to be sure they understand and are connected with on the front end are highly aligned with the things that make them thrive on the back end.
Because these are some of the fundamentals of the experience, right? So it's what that gets them excited about coming, and it's those very things that help build faith in them and build self-confidence and all of these other outcomes that we see. And so I really want to emphasize, and you added it the second time that you said it, but it's not just community, it's a community of purpose. Right? It's this community of common purpose, and knowing that common purpose is so important. What do you put in the center of that circle? Will we give them that infographic, and so we oftentimes say a community of faith. It's this place where we're aligned in our faith, and we're aligned in our goals, and in our understanding of who God is, and this hyper awareness of God in the world. Mission. What is your mission? Mm-hmm. You want to sell your summer staff on this mission. This is our purpose. This is why we're here. We're not just here to have a good time. We're not just here to get kids away from their parents and stuff. What is our purpose? What is our mission? What's going to unite these young people and say, yes, I want to jump on board with that? And so that's really my challenge to you, is to be mission mindful. Be mission mindful about the way that you're talking with your summer staff, the way that you're recruiting them. This is so essential. That really aligns with this purpose and meaning. The new experiences, of course, aligns with the agency, right? They're looking for new experiences, novel experiences, and we help them do that. We give them leadership, we give them agency while they're doing that. So I wouldn't say try to recruit them or sell them on this idea of agency. I don't think that's a sort of a tough concept for them to get their minds around, or say, oh yeah, I want to work there because I'm going to get agency. But certainly this idea of new experiences and experiences with a purpose. And that gives us something that we might term as agency. And this support, absolutely. It's actually in one of the things that I mentioned at the beginning. Supportive relationships is one of those compelling reasons. And support is one of those things that they need at camp in order to thrive. And so making sure we're leaning into those things, saying, yes, you're going to get these things, and then actually making it happen so that they have this positive experience, so that they grow, so that they're thriving and help the campers have a positive experience and grow. And when all of that happens, they're going to get excited about what they're doing and what they're a part of, and they're going to want to come back. And that helps you with your retention. So it's a loop. Like, all of these things carry through the entire experience. But these are the things to focus in on. And what I want to point out too is what's not on this list. And I will say it's not on the top 3 list, but it was in the list of things that we asked them about. We asked them about things like earning money. Are you here to earn money? And it's not that it was not important, but it was important for like half of them. And it was less important by far than any of these other things. In fact, usually when we ask them to, how important are these things, it ends up as one of the bottom 2, in terms of the motivations for working on summer camp staff. And when we see it higher, the staff that come in more motivated because they want to earn money, sometimes they're there for the wrong reasons, and they are less likely to have a positive experience and thrive. And so that's that's the other key thing to remember. Even if, and I want to say, first of all, this is not the primary motivator, and it's not going to get people to say yes, right? We have stats about this, that offering them a bunch more money is not the reason that they're going to come to camp. It can be a barrier, right? It can be a barrier if
Right.
the staff salary is super low or they just can't afford
And
to
of course
do it.
we hear that, but yeah.
We know that, but it's not the thing that sells them on coming. All right, so don't think of it that way. And don't even frame it that way. But the other thing is, if they're coming because they think this is one of the main reasons, and that's above things like mission and purpose, they're much less likely to have a good experience and much more likely to leave in the middle of the summer. And so that actually hurts the experience for everybody else, especially when somebody leaves in the middle of the summer. It breaks the community and things like that. So you don't want them there for the wrong reasons. Pay your staff well. I don't want. I always want to be careful with this one, like, because I'm not arguing that you should just pay your staff hardly anything and just make sure we want you here for the right reasons. So we're going to pay you $100 a week. No. Like, pay them well, but pay them well because because it's the right thing to do.
You value
not because
them,
that's
and
what's
they
going to
work
get them
hard
to say yes.
and all of those
exactly,
things, right?
Exactly. It's not gonna be the thing to make them say yes. And we have this from the Outdoor Ministry Connection survey, the director survey. Those that had the highest salaries, that were kind of in the top third of how much they paid their staff per week,
Mm-hmm.
they were no more fully staffed than
that had
those
no
who were
bearing
in the
on
middle third or that
Mhm.
were in the bottom third. In fact, those that were in the bottom third of payment actually were more likely to be fully staffed than those that were in the top third, which is sort of the opposite of what you would think.
Of course.
And
Yeah, that's
again, that's
interesting.
not an argument to pay them less, but I think it is an argument to focus on these other things.
Yeah.
To focus on
That's
community,
it.
to focus on mission and
That's it.
purpose, and to focus on these new experiences, because this is what they're after. They can make money somewhere else. They're choosing your camp because of the unique things that you offer and what you can give to them. Now, we've talked before about how this experience on summer staff can also build these character traits, and build resumes and things like that. And employers are looking for this as well. Sure, use those arguments, but couch them in terms of these other three things. You're going to have these new experiences, and that's going to build skills that are going to be helpful in the workforce. You are going to have agency, leadership, and meaning and purpose in such a way that we're going to give you these leadership skills and abilities that employers are looking for. I mean, we have this from the research too, right? So focus in on these top three things, and that helps you make the argument for camp. And again, these are the reasons we want people to come to camp in the first place anyway. So another reason to leave.
Good news that those are aligned. Let's take a quick
Exactly.
break, Jake.
Okay.
Let's take a quick break, and then when we come back in, we're going to take these things and we're going to use them. We're going to apply them. We're going to try to get really actionable and applicable for how do these come into play at these different stages, kind of from here forward at these different stages of the staff journey. Because to step up for a second, I think I appreciate a lot that this reminds us and proves a bit that the staff journey is a whole arc. It is a whole cyclical thing. It is not a start and stop at a certain point. It's this whole arc, and the connection and leaning into these things at literally every spot of this story arc of their journey will make a big difference. Will make a big difference this year going forward, which is where we'll focus. And then again, this story will start again. So we'll be right back.
Hey there, camp supporters. A common question that team members at Sacred Playgrounds get is, how can we support your work? Here's 5 ways you can support Sacred Playgrounds. First, pray for us and for our clients. Second, share the email content, the social posts, and podcasts that you find helpful. Third, you could hire us or buy our products by heading to our website and checking out the camp store. Fourth, buy us a cup of coffee. Whole team loves a good cup of caribou coffee. Or fifth, buy us a virtual cup of coffee at ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com/Sacred Playgrounds. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Jake. That's helpful. This sets the table well. Lays this foundation. It reminds me a little of what I feel like we've been learning a lot about the value of knowing motivators coming into a thing. This has been true in all the camper data too. You know,
Mhm.
as we talk to these camp directors, I found myself saying this to a lot of directors at the conferences that we went to and things like that, telling them, you know, one of the most valuable parts of, let's say, the Effective Camp Project has been this pre-survey, the way in. Knowing their perspectives and motivations on the way in makes a huge difference, and that has been absolutely true for the staff journey too, the staff
Absolutely.
perspective.
Yep.
Of course, it helps us recruit. So we're in the heart of recruiting season. Let's
Yeah.
start with this stage of things. We're in the
Right.
heart of recruiting season. Hopefully, you have a whole bunch of yeses already. Hopefully, you have a whole bunch of staff agreements signed, and people have said they're coming. That is obviously an important milestone. It is sure not the end, and sure not the end of even prep and getting ready. So let's talk just for a second, Jake, about how these things apply right now from these folks who are thinking about saying yes, or maybe they don't even necessarily know yet. We still might get some fresh faces, but from now till this staff agreement, let's talk about these folks for a second. How do these things matter? How do we take these things that motivate them and apply them, put them into practice for sake of this last chunk of recruiting?
Right. That's so important. So many of you have already gone out, you've done recruiting fairs and things like that. You've got some applications in, hopefully, and you're taking stock. Here's where to lean into these. One, think about these supportive relationships. If this is what they're looking for, this is one of the primary things they're looking for, they need these off the bat. That is going to help them say yes. And so if you've only had email communication or one brief encounter with these folks, that's not going to help close the deal. What's going to help close the deal is personal, trusted relationships. And so how are you building these with your prospective staff? Get to know them. Are you taking them out and getting one-on-ones with them? Not just a quick interview, but are you following up and saying, how is this thing? You told me that this was going on. Talk to me about that. Like, they want to know that they're going to be working for somebody and with somebody that can be trusted and that cares about them. And this is really important for emerging adults. It always has been. And it's like, this isn't something new. And I think it's more so. It's more so these days. And so really, this takes time. This takes a lot of time. Is it worth getting in the car, driving 2 hours, and getting a face-to-face with somebody? Yes. Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
If you can make a couple stops on the way, great. Is it worth doing that for one staff person who might be an awesome staff person and this might close the deal? Yes, it is. If you do that 3 times, might you only close one of those and actually get that person? Yes. Is that worth it? Yes. It's
Because
worth the time.
when we remember, one, we're not. That makes me think of 2 things, right? One, if we change our perspective and we're recruiting a potential person for 3 years and we have to do almost zero work next year to get them to come back, we give them a good experience and they're coming back. So this idea that we're not just this very short time we're recruiting them. The other thing is, of course, we need to be efficient, right? Of course, every program director and executive, they're running around crazy. We're doing so much. We're prepping for things that are coming, but also in recruiting. Again, we've said this before, use those returners, the yeses that you have.
Exactly.
When you send a text message to your leadership staff for the summer that you already know are probably in place, and that prospective person, and say, hey, I just wanted to connect you guys because I know you both played softball at college or whatever it is. So use the supportive relationships that you've already built in the past. Leverage those for building these supportive relationships. It's going to be more valuable if you don't just do that yourself, right? Because it can't just be built on your own charisma. It can't just be built on your own,
That's right.
I'm really, of course you are. Yes, you're good at this. Those are the ones that are actually going to connect them and give them a taste of the supportive community they're about to have. So use them.
It's both and. They want to know that they're going to be working with good coworkers and people that care about them and want to be with them. And you are also important.
For sure.
They want to work for you. Make them want to work for you and make it personal. Really. And this is a hard thing. This is part of ministry. And so my encouragement really is to get to know these folks personally, so that when they arrive, you are the one person who knows everybody in the circle.
So let's add one more thing to this chunk of kind of closing, getting them getting them to yes. And it's maybe the obvious one, and it's about our language. Right? It's about the words that we use.
You got it.
When we know they are motivated by this, this, and this, say that. Say that.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep.
Hypermissional language. When you are sending that text message, when you are sending that email, when you are on that phone, the words on your tongue are your mission, are stories of the supportive community that you have built. They are stories about the really cool, maybe it's a brand new experience, or hey, all of our staff, they do this together every whatever. Those kinds of things that give them stories, give them tastes of, and set their expectations. So the language that we use and the stories that we tell on the way in here is the other thing that we can leverage most to get them to say yes.
And once again, lean into your mission. Be mission mindful. Like, what are they going to do? What are you accomplishing at camp? Use those statistics that you have, that we have, that we're giving you for what is happening for these young people. They want to impact the young people. They want to make a difference in the world. How are you, your camp specifically, how are you making a difference in the world? And how are they going to be part of it? That's what hooks them.
Whew.
Now, some of them are going to have this follow-up question. And sometimes we lead with the follow-up answers. Don't lead with the follow-up answers. Lead with the primary things. Lead with these things so that they say, oh my gosh, I want to do this. I would love to do this. I just don't know if it's going to be good for my career. Or I just don't know if I can afford to do it. Then you do the follow-up with the camp builds these career skills, and career recruiters, business people are looking
These
for
are
the
the
skills
things.
that are built at
We
camp.
knock down those roadblocks.
It's a
Right.
Yes. You knock down those things afterwards. You don't lead with those things. Because if you're leading with those things, then you're competing with the other things that are paying them more money, or that are an internship, that are just obvious to them that they're a good career path. What you want them to say is, I want to spend my summer doing something that matters, that's meaningful. I'm building friends. I'm having new experiences. This is what I want to give my time to. Help convince me. And then you can follow up, okay, with some of these other things. So lead with those things. All right. So those are really the recruiting things. And then I think
Let's
next step.
Let's move into the next kind of stage of things. Good job. You got staff agreement signed. All right. Maybe you are feeling fully staffed. Here's hoping within the next few weeks that you're clearly feeling like that. And you've got staff training that you're prepping for, that you're looking out to, you're planning your schedule. But there is a chunk of time in here that really matters, right? You brought this up, Jake.
Yep.
Because sometimes it feels a little hard to believe still, but sometimes for whatever reason, we're too busy, this, that, we still have zero almost contact other than maybe some paperwork with our staff between the time they say yes and the time they show up for staff training. Sometimes that's why they don't show up.
And that's
right?
unconscionable.
Wait a sec. I didn't even, it feels like that. And it's still, and of course, most of us are better than that, but we want to go a whole different depth than that. We want to be really intentional, and this is where you apply these things. Intentional about our pre-camp prep.
Yep.
Intentional about that.
Yes.
And so the other thing that we often do, and of course this is great, right? We've heard an increase in people talking about, well, let's do some pre-training. And we're not going to spend a lot of time there. Of course, some pre-training can be valuable, can help you be efficient in staff training. Are there things they can do, they can look through before? Sure, yes, some of that can be valuable. But what you'll notice is that pre-training really doesn't build in any of these three things that got them to say yes and keep them motivated ahead.
I actually
let's talk
worry
about that
pre-training.
stage.
I worry about pre-training. If we're sending them a module and thinking that this is going to help get them ahead for, some of the training things, I don't think that's going to be effective. And actually it could hurt. It could be like, oh, is this really what I want to do? This is the sort of boring stuff, or I'm required to watch this video or something like that. I actually I'm starting to lean away from, send them all these pre-training videos.
Sure.
Do that stuff during staff orientation, during staff training. What you want to be doing between now and then is letting them know what they're a part of and welcoming them into this community. That's one of the big things that you do in staff training when you're in person, is you're building this community and this excitement about what you're going to do and get them bought into the mission. Those are the things that you want to do pre-camp as well. And so, yes, have a pre-training, a gathering where they can gather in person. Do that. And also leverage these three things that you know that they're after and lean into them. So how are you leaning into community? Well, one, make sure they know you and that they're connected that way. But more than that, you want them to get to know these other staff members.
Yeah.
Remember, we talk about these
huge.
important things. Support and agency are so big in this community of faith. Start to build that right now. Give these staff people who are returning staff people agency right now. How can you give them agency? You can have them mentor an incoming summer staff. You could even do this one-on-one. Hey, here's a staff member who worked on staff last year. I'm going to connect you to. I'd love you two to have a conversation. And that person can reach out individually and tell them about what it's like to work on summer staff and have that other perspective where they know this isn't the person trying to recruit me or isn't going to be my supervisor. This is going to be one of my coworkers. That's a way to do it. The other way is, do you have a communication stream with them where somebody, one of your former staff persons or one of the returners talks about the importance of community. How are we building community at camp? And this is what I love about working on staff at this camp. These are the new experiences that I had last year. I want to tell you all about these new experiences.
Get those stories
and
out there.
you're going to have these experiences too. Get them excited about those things that help them say yes. Here's how you're going to make a difference in young people's lives. Here's a story about a camper that I encountered last summer, and here's a letter or an email or a text message that I got from this camper about how they're doing now. And wow, look at the impact that we're having on these people. Lean into those three things, and you can do that between the yes and the arrival, so that you know and you've had this communication, and it's not a hold your breath. Are these people going to show up? Because you've been in communication with them for weeks, and they're excited about coming, and they're prepped for, I'm going to have new experiences. I'm going to meet some of these awesome people in person. Hopefully I've already met some of them. The ones that are at my school, have you connected them? That's an easy thing.
Right.
And then I'm going to have a meaningful summer, and I'm going to make a difference in this world.
Okay, so we stumbled on 3 really tactical, tangible things we can do right there that I would even gosh, if I were program director right now, I would be literally writing these down, making a list.
Do it right now.
1,
Yep.
Every single person needs a one-on-one connection. Every single incoming staff member needs a one-on-one connection. Somebody at their school or someone else. So maybe it's that mentor thing. Every single staff person needs an individual introduction to another incoming, maybe returning staff member. 1. 2, they need a space to connect, probably a digital space of some kind where they're starting, some kind of group. You're using GroupMe, you're using a text thread, maybe even you're using some other kind of communication space. Create the space. And every time somebody new says yes, you say, here we go, enter them in. And into that space, you're adding, and maybe it's a weekly question, you're adding, hey, returning staff, tell us a story about last summer, right? Jake mentioned some of those things. Don't just let that be out there. Facilitate that a bit. Throw some things into that space so that they can do that. And here's the last one that just popped into my head is 3. Give them an elevator speech. Give them, all these incoming staff, an elevator speech. So when they get asked, what are you doing this summer? This is what I'm doing. I'm going to camp. And here's what I'm going to get to do at camp. Give them an elevator speech. Literally write it out, and put it into those spaces. Send that to them. Give them an elevator speech so they know, because that's where your mission words come in. If they're already speaking your mission before they even get to staff training, now they're really aligned.
Absolutely.
So, go check. Go do those things.
These are the pre-staff training things to do. Not, hey, here's a module on how to take care of kids at the waterfront. You want to do these very, very high impact things with them on the 3 major things that they're looking at. Now, staff training. I think we need to go there.
Next stage.
Yeah. We're running out of time.
We could talk about staff forever. So we got them to say yes. We have faithfully prepared them. They've got our mission on their minds and in their mouths, and now they arrive. They're here. They're for staff training. Now, at the risk of stating the obvious, staff training really matters.
Oh my gosh.
Of course. And the quality of staff training really matters. And there's one thing that matters more than the quality of staff training. And that's if they're there. That's if they show up. Presence is the thing that matters most for staff training.
Can I say, so we see this in the data, and we kind of feel this when staff show up late, or they're not there for staff training. Even returning staff, and I want to emphasize that, even returning staff, sometimes they'll make the argument, well, I've had staff training for the last 2-3 years. I know what I'm doing. I'm just going to show up and be a counselor. I need you to say no to that. And I know that's hard. So here's some of the data from 2022 when we did Lutheran and United Methodist camps together, and we measured the support and agency, because that's one of the indices that we really measure. Are they feeling support and agency during the summer? And so on average, are these camps having a high level of support and agency among their staff in general, a moderate amount, or a low level of support and agency? In 2022, there were 8 camps that we measured as having this low level of support and agency during the summer. It's not where we want to be. Those are the staff that didn't have a good experience. They're probably not going to come back. And it's across the whole staffing community, not just those that had a poor experience. It's the whole staff.
Right.
Now, of those 8 camps, 6 of them, 6 of the 8 that had this low level of support and agency in 2022 had at least a quarter of their staff miss staff training.
Missing training. Right.
This is a really important thing to think about. It's not just one staff or 2 staff that, they were graduating from high school, or they had this family trip, or they missed part of it some way. We can make exceptions. I'm not saying don't make exceptions. I'm saying don't make it the rule. Don't make it so that you're at staff training and you have half your staff there, or you have 2/3 or even 3/4 of your staff there. You want it to be everybody but 1 or 2 people. And that those 1 or 2 people, they missed something. They missed it. They arrived late, and this staff community is already formed. And then, yes, they can open up and welcome in 1 or 2 more people, but you don't have 2 separate communities where this is the group that went through staff training, and here's the group that think they knew everything already anyway, and it's, a quarter of your staff, and they have their own group that arrived late, and now the whole thing gets shaken up. You don't want that dynamic. So during recruiting, this is part of recruiting and preparation, right? You're going to have people say, okay, do I have to come to staff training though? The answer is yes. We need you there for staff training. You need to be there for staff training.
Yep.
For the people that, the 1 or 2 people that are late or whatever like that, have ways to make sure that they're incorporated into the staff and that they get those training things. Sometimes it's going to be one-on-one with you or a leadership staff person after they arrive, before they're with campers. Don't just throw them with campers. This is so important, you guys, because staff training matters. It matters so much, and you put so much time into it. Don't cheapen it by saying, okay, I really like this person, so we're going to have them come. I know it's hard when we're understaffed, but it's going to be even harder if you've got staff that don't know what they're doing, and you've got staff that are leaving early because they're not feeling like they're part of the community. Then you have that problem in the middle of the summer anyway. So
and then you sacrifice.
You sacrifice.
You sacrifice quality. Period. Like, you sacrifice program quality from that, and you have to think about it at that level. And
Absolutely.
we know that's even big. That's ACA level. Like big level. All of camps, not just faith-based Christian camp research, is that program quality trumps everything.
That's right.
Good experience trumps everything. And the thing that immediately suffers is your program quality, your experience for them. Yeah,
and then campers aren't having a good experience. And then you're not having your mission impact. That's the reason that the staff members are there in the first place. And they're seeing that breakdown. And then your staff community is breaking down. And then you're not having your mission impact. And fewer campers are coming back next summer. And fewer staff are coming back next summer. And so the consequences build and build and build on one another. And so it's hard, really focus in on that quality, you guys. And I know it's hard. We're trying to figure out creative ways to staff. Somebody's coming in midway through the summer. They can only be here for half the summer. And those are the most challenging experiences. So make that the exception, the rare exception to the rule for very specific circumstances. Not, but this person wants to spend half the summer at home. And so we're just going to make this exception for them. Don't let them make that. Just say, if you want to work at camp this summer, this is what we need from you.
We got it. Yeah. So
I know that's
during this, it is. And that's obviously the headline here with the staff training piece is about presence. The 2 things during staff training to implement these 3 expectations, motivations things. So one, again, is language. We've already talked about this, but one, again, is language. Check your language. Check your staff training manuals. Check the words that you are planning on saying. Those words should be about your mission, and those words should be about the community that you're building and the impact that it makes, and those words should be about some of the new experiences that they're having. And so the language that you say, 1, and 2, your schedule. how your schedule reflects these things. So check your staff training schedule as you're building it, as you're refining your staff training schedule. Don't just rinse and repeat from last year, right? And if you are a person that gets this tactical, get labels out that say community, that say new experiences, that say support, and label your staff training modules, your staff training experiences with the thing that they're building, with the thing that they're connecting with their motivations. And make sure
at
they
least
are.
one of those three things is in every single session.
Every one of them. And
even
if it's not,
policy and procedures.
Question that, right? Yes.
Yep. And say, okay,
question that session.
This is challenging. How are we going to make sure that this is also building supportive community? How are we going to make sure that this is also talking about new experiences or that mission? I mean, like, really leaning into those things, and how are we emphasizing these things and taking specific time to build this community, specific time to lean into the mission. You need to keep going through this and keep going. With staff training and with how we're operating staff training, I'm gonna emphasize these three words. Are you ready? Let them lead. Let them lead. We heard from Lyle Griner on our last episode. If you haven't listened to that one, listen back. Lyle is fond of saying, and I think his book title is this, right? Youth are either leading or leaving. Leading or leaving. That applies to your summer staff. Do they have agency? Are they being invited into this experience? Do they have purpose? Remember, they're there for purpose and mission. If they feel like it doesn't really matter if I'm here, like, yeah, there'll be one less warm body, but what am I really being asked to contribute? Then it's not going to be as worth it to them. They're either leading or they're leaving. Right away. Staff training, let them lead. Yes, you need to be upfront. Yes, you need to set the tone. And part of that setting the tone is empowering your summer staff to be leaders right away, right off the bat. Because this is one of those things that it's one of those key aspects of the summer staff experience is experiential leadership. It's the number one area of growth at the end of the summer is leadership. In fact, we redid the study this year with the Episcopalians, and 100% agreed that they grew in their leadership abilities. 100%, every single staff person.
Literally,
but it was in previous years it was 95% when we worked with the Lutherans and Methodists. It was a larger group, but it was really funny when I ran the numbers and I was like, really? Not even one person like slightly disagreed? Nope, 100%.
You don't see the full hundo a lot.
Let them lead.
All right, so this kind of like getting from now up through staff training was obviously the bulk of the focus here. So yes, of course, right? As we talked about this, there's this whole arc here, and so the ways that these three things, because these things that they're looking for, right, that they're after, when we meet their expectations, right, because that's when they set them. That's how they set their expectations. This is what I'm after. When we meet those expectations through the beginnings of this experience and continue this throughout the summer, right? Now you've got a staff member who is absolutely coming back. And so, yes, so of course this applies. And Jake, maybe there's a quick note or two as we get close to the end here about just, continue to apply these things the rest of the summer. They don't stop at staff training.
That's right.
Their expectation for these experiences don't stop at staff training, right?
Remind them why they're there. Because they're going to get tired and there's going to be something going on back home and they're going to want to be there. But you want them to be at your camp more than that, right? You want them to just like, I can't imagine leaving. Even when it's hard, I need to be here because I'm needed, because my boss needs me and cares about me, because my fellow staff need me and care about me, because these campers need me and care about me. I'm necessary. And I'm going to stick it out because this is important. And I believe in this mission and ministry. Not because if I leave early, I won't get my last $350 paycheck or $450 or whatever you're paying your staff. Like, I mean, that's not going to be the reason they stay. Okay. They're going to stay because of these three factors. That community needs them. These experiences that they can't imagine not having these experiences one more week. And the purpose and the mission of your camp.
Yeah. So a quick, really, really tactical thing for kind of each of these throughout the summer. They are looking for new experiences. When you have a week that maybe there's a few less campers, but your staff are still on or something like that. Give them a different opportunity for the week. Give them a new role. Let them try to do something that they haven't done before. Right? Do you think they might be a program leader in future years? Make them a program leader for a week this year and work right alongside, your high level, best leaders for the week, right? And give them those new experiences through something really tangible, really, really active. Your community, those supportive relationships that they were needing on the way in, have an intentionality, a system in place for them to continue those relationships, prayer partners, check-ins, and even in smaller spaces than just the debrief after the week, right? Of course, we're going to, debrief, and of course, we're going to set up the way in, taking time in there to get in a group of 3 and talk another level deeper, where you're building over the course of the summer, you're building depth to your relationships and continuing to, and maybe that's in the questions that you ask as you debrief. How'd you meet the mission this week? How did you, in what you did, meet the mission of our community, of our camp?
Love it.
Use your questions, use the ways that you debrief and talk about things, use your mission as a lens for those things. So write up those end of week questions. Those are some really tangible ways to do that.
Great suggestions. And then stick to it, right?
And
make a plan right now and stick to it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Make that plan. I've thought about this a bunch, Jake, with that make that plan now. You're not going to make that plan in June and July.
Good Lord, no.
Make that now. You're going to be flying. You're going to be. And so if something is
survival
so important,
mode. Yep.
Yeah, make that plan. This is so helpful. We're going to take a very quick moment to do our quick camp question.
Quick camp question.
All right, my friend. And I think, thankfully, there's like a math equation that is the answer to this question. That well, you and I have both found ourselves, you have no idea, found ourselves using. So here's the question, and the question underneath the question. This is all the way back from our pulse check survey. One question we got that we haven't covered is this. So this is a question: how can I help my bishop, my diocesan council in this case? This person was asking, whatever our leadership like that is, our regional, our judicatory. How can I help these bishop, diocesan council leaders understand that summer camp, although seasonal, requires staffing, in this case, they're asking about like multiple full-time staff.
Full-time staff.
Yeah. Full-time staff.
Yep. Yeah.
There's, of course, a question underneath the question is how do I, so I'm reframing this. That's a very, kind of specific, but how do I share the value of camp with that level of leaders, with those judicatory regional?
Yep. So people that have influence,
leaders,
but they're not directly involved, right? But sometimes they end up being the decision makers. They can cut things from the budget.
Sometimes they can
say yes or no, and like they don't
advocacy.
have time because they're doing all these other things, right? And so my answer actually is cold hard data. Cold,
right?
Hard
and that's the math problem
data.
that I was referring to, right? We've said this in our presentations. I'll let you expand, but as we've talked to folks, we said that the reality of the most impactful narrative that you can have right now, especially for a leader at kind of that higher level, is story, which you are so good at. Camp story, specific ones, impactful ones, inspiring ones, plus cold hard data, as Jake just said. When you add story and data together, you have an incredibly impactful narrative.
For this particular question, I mean, you want to show impact, right? So this is how we're impacting. So make sure those numbers are in there. But then you want to show industry. And so we've got industry data from the Outdoor Ministry Connection Survey. If you're part of 3CA, the Compass Survey, ACA has industry data about the size of camps and then how big their staff are, how big their full-time staff are. And we have the list of those positions of, director, maintenance, food service often, then a program or associate director often, and an administrator of some sort for office registrar, things like that. And so we have sort of the order that these staff are usually hired and the size of the camps that need this level of full-time leadership. So use that and just say, look, we're one of 20,000 camps in this country, according to ACA. And here's how the industry works. And here's how we are currently operating. And this is why I'm telling you we're short-staffed. Because other camps like us have 3 people instead of just 1. And so you can just, it's cold hard data. And then what do these people do and how are we doing that? Then you can, lean into that, but just that just takes a couple of lines, right? Like, we need to recruit staff. We need to make sure that we're connecting our mission with congregations and families and things like that. And we need to be out there. And if we're going to be out there, we've got to have staff people. We've got to raise money. And so if we're going to do that, how are we going to, we need staff people. This takes staff time, right? We need to host people during the retreat season. How are we going to do that? We need a full-time cook to do that, or a full-time maintenance person to do that. You can't just do all the maintenance during 3 months in the summer. Those are the sorts of things that, because it really might be that they just don't know. They don't know how the industry works. And so saying, here's data from the industry, that cold hard data.
That's it. And the other thing I would add is in the way that we word that is, you can align what you're saying and even that data with their mission, with the mission of that diocese, that regional, that synod, that whatever it is, align with their mission. This helps you. This helps you. This helps this area in this way, right? When this place thrives like this is aligned with your desired outcomes, with your desired hope. You align with their mission, and you prove it with the data. And now you're able to make an enthusiast or an advocate out of someone who was maybe an accommodator or a skeptic. And as those terms that we've used before. Thanks, Jake. Jake, we went long today, and I don't feel bad. How's that? Like, so we try to keep, but like, we packed a lot of staff stuff in here. Sometimes we've done stacks of episodes and webinars and things on staffing because it obviously matters, and something that we, Sacred Playgrounds cares about a ton. We do a lot of this, this work around these research and these insights on campers, continuing an increase in amount of that stuff that is around staff. But then the whole point of doing any of this research work, this insights work, this data gathering, is that we can use it, that we can apply it, and it's you. It's you and your staff are where that gets real. So that's why we lean into staffing and training and equipping and those things that matter. We will not stop doing that as part of our, one of the big buckets of things that we care about. So.
And when we get into survival mode and we're understaffed, sometimes we start throwing spaghetti against the wall, and you don't need to do that because we know what the messaging needs to be. And so focus on these 3 things: supportive relationships, new experiences, purpose, and meaning. Focus on those things and it will stick.
Amen. Thanks everybody for listening to the Sacred Playgrounds podcast. Thanks for listening to the Sacred Playgrounds podcast. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/sacredplaygrounds or at Sacred Playgrounds on Instagram. Be sure to hit the follow or subscribe button wherever you're getting this podcast. And if you like this content and it's helpful, you can support the podcast by clicking that support button. Our theme music was written and performed by Taylor Wilson. You can find all his original songs wherever you get your music. Learn more about what we're up to and connect with the team at sacredplaygrounds.com.